The metal walls of the spaceship Prometheus seemed to hum with nervous energy. Dr. Emma Clark sat at the long table, her hands folded neatly over her research notes. She had studied alien life forms for 15 years, but today was different. Today, humans would meet their first intelligent alien species face to face. Across the table, empty chairs waited for the visitors. The Veltar had agreed to this meeting after months of careful radio messages back and forth. Nobody knew what to expect. The aliens had described themselves as tall and strong, but words could only say so much. Captain Robert Hayes checked his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. "They should be here soon," he said to his team. His voice was steady, but Emma could see the tension in his shoulders. This meeting would change everything for humanity. The door slid open with a soft whoosh. 3 figures walked in and the humans fell silent. The Veltar were even more impressive than Emma had imagined. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, with thick green scales that caught the room's bright lights. Their heads were long and angular, like ancient dragons from Earth's old stories. But it was their eyes that made Emma's breath catch. Yellow eyes with thin black pupils that seemed to see everything at once. The leader stepped forward. His scales were darker than the others, almost black-green. A small device on his chest translated his words into English. "I am Prime Commander Thane of the Veltar Confederation. We come in peace to meet with the humans of Earth." Captain Hayes stood up, following the script they had practiced dozens of times. "On behalf of all humans and the United Earth Coalition, we welcome you to this historic meeting. I am Captain Robert Hayes and this is our scientific team." But something strange happened before Hayes could continue. Prime Commander Thane's yellow eyes locked onto Emma's across the table. The alien leader went completely still, like a statue carved from stone. His 2 companions also stopped moving, watching their leader with concern. The silence stretched on. Emma could hear her own heartbeat. She wanted to look away from those intense yellow eyes, but found she could not. There was something in Thane's gaze that held her attention. It was not hostile, but it was searching. Like he was looking for something specific in her face. Finally, after what felt like forever but was probably only 30 seconds, Thane spoke. His words came slowly, carefully, as if he was thinking about each one. The translator crackled to life. "Your species. We know this look. It is the same in all hunters who have earned their place at the top." Emma felt a chill run down her back. Hunters? Humans were not really hunters anymore. They bought food from stores and lived in cities. What could this alien see that she could not? Captain Hayes looked confused. This was not in any of their prepared conversations. "I'm sorry, Commander Thane. Could you explain what you mean?" But Thane did not look at the captain. His eyes stayed fixed on Emma. "Your eyes," he said through the translator. "They hold the same patience we see in the great predators of our world. The same certainty." Dr. James Wilson, the team's psychologist, leaned forward. "Certainty about what, Commander?" Now Thane did look at him, and James sat back in his chair as if pushed by an invisible force. "Certainty that you will survive whatever comes. That you will find a way through any problem. We have seen this look in the eyes of creatures who rule entire continents on our world." Emma found her voice at last. "But we're not predators like you describe. Humans are, we're just people." A sound came from Thane's throat that might have been laughter. "Just people," he repeated. "Yes. That is what makes it so remarkable." The other Veltar had been silent until now. The female stepped forward and spoke. Her translator said, "On our world, the great hunters are obvious. They have sharp teeth, powerful muscles, deadly poison. They announce their danger to all who see them. But humans," said the third Veltar, "look harmless, small, weak. Yet something in your eyes warns us that appearances lie." Captain Hayes tried to get the meeting back on track. "Perhaps we could discuss the trade agreements our governments have been negotiating?" Thane nodded politely, but Emma could see he was not really interested in trade anymore. Something else was happening here, something none of the humans had expected. As they went through the planned discussions about technology sharing and peaceful cooperation, Emma noticed that Thane kept glancing at her. Not just her, she realized, but at all the humans. He was studying them like a scientist studying interesting specimens. During a break, Dr. Wilson approached Emma. "What do you think he meant about hunters?" he asked quietly. Emma shook her head. "I don't know. But I keep thinking about something my grandfather used to say. He said humans were the only animals that hunted with their brains instead of their bodies." "You think that's what he sees?" "Maybe. Or maybe he sees something we don't even know about ourselves." When the meeting resumed, Thane made an unexpected announcement. "The Veltar Confederation would like to invite humanity to attend a special gathering. Other species like us have heard about your arrival in space. They wish to meet you. Other apex predators, added the female. From 12 different worlds. They have all asked the same question about humans. Captain Hayes looked interested. What question? Thane's yellow eyes found Emma's again. They want to know why the most dangerous creatures from every world seem to recognize something familiar in human eyes. Something that makes even the greatest predators pause and think twice. The meeting ended soon after, with promises to arrange the larger gathering. As the Veltar left, Emma sat alone in the empty conference room, staring at her reflection in the dark window. For the first time in her life, she wondered what other species might see when they looked into human eyes. What had evolution written there that humans themselves could not read? Outside, the stars waited with their answers. Dr. James Mitchell stared at the wall of screens in his research lab on Kepler Station. Each screen showed videos from different worlds, and each video showed the same impossible thing happening over and over again. Alien predators were acting strange around humans and nobody could explain why. Show me the gas giant footage again, James said to his assistant, Dr. Lisa Warren. The biggest screen flickered to life. It showed creatures that lived in the crushing atmosphere of a distant gas planet. The locals called them void stalkers, and each one was as big as a city block. They had evolved to hunt other giant creatures in the thick, poisonous air of their world. Watch what happens when they meet our research team, Lisa said, pointing at the screen. The human atmospheric researchers flew their small ships into the void stalker territory. James held his breath, expecting to see the massive creatures attack the tiny human vessels. Instead, something completely different happened. The void stalkers circled the human ships slowly, carefully. They could have crushed the ships like insects, but they did not. They just watched. One of the giant creatures came so close that its huge eye filled the entire camera view. For a long moment, human and alien stared at each other through the ship's window. Then the void stalker backed away and left the humans alone. The local scientists we talked to said this has never happened before, Lisa continued. Void stalkers attack everything that enters their territory. Everything except humans. James nodded grimly. He had 17 similar reports from 17 different worlds. Always the same pattern. The most dangerous creatures on each planet would encounter humans and then stop. Not attack. Not flee. Just stop and stare as if they recognized something. Pull up the crystal world data, James said. Another screen showed the mineral planet Epsilon Eridani. The ruling species there were called shard queens, living creatures made of living crystal who jealously guarded their mineral gardens. No alien species had ever been allowed near their territory. Until humans arrived. The footage showed human geologists working side by side with shard queens, digging and studying minerals together. The crystal beings, who had killed other alien visitors on site, were actually helping the humans with their research. It makes no sense, Lisa said. These shard queens have been hostile to every other species for thousands of years. But they treat humans like equals. Dr. Michael Thompson's voice crackled over the communication system from the observation deck. James, you need to get up here. We just received a transmission from the wolf world. James and Lisa rushed to the observation deck. Michael was playing a video message from the planet inhabited by the Fenrari, a species that looked like giant wolves but walked on two legs and used tools. The Fenrari pack leader appeared on screen. Through the translator, her words came clearly. Human friends, our hunters have encountered your people in the deep forests. Something remarkable has happened. Our alpha wolves, who challenge all newcomers to prove their strength, have instead chosen to follow human explorers. They treat your people as pack leaders, though humans have never fought for dominance. James sat down heavily in his chair. It's happening everywhere we go. Not just happening, Lisa corrected. It's happening the same way every time. The apex predators of each world see something in humans that makes them pause. Something that commands respect. Michael pulled up a communication log. It gets stranger. The different alien species have been talking to each other about us. They're sharing information about human encounters. What kind of information? James asked. They're comparing notes about human behavior. About the way humans look at things. About. Michael paused, checking his translation software. About what they call the patient gaze. Lisa frowned. The patient gaze? What does that mean? According to the translations, it's the look that apex predators recognize in each other. The look that says, I will wait as long as it takes and I will find a way to win. James felt a chill run down his spine. He remembered his first meeting with aliens, how their predator representatives had stared at him with what seemed like recognition. At the time, he had thought they were just curious about humans. Now he wondered if they had been seeing something else entirely. There's more, Michael continued. The alien apex species are organizing some kind of gathering. They want to meet with humans officially. A diplomatic meeting? Lisa asked. No. Something they're calling an apex conclave. They want to invite humanity to join some kind of predator council. James stared at the screen showing footage from dozens of worlds. Everywhere humans went, the most dangerous creatures seemed to recognize something familiar. Something that made them treat humans not as prey, not as competitors, but as something else entirely. What do you think they see when they look at us? Lisa asked quietly. James thought about his own species. Humans were not the strongest or fastest creatures on Earth, let alone in the galaxy. They had no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons. They were relatively small and soft compared to most apex predators. But humans had survived ice ages, plagues, natural disasters, and countless other challenges. They had spread across their entire planet, adapting to every environment from frozen tundra to burning deserts. They had learned to use tools, to cooperate, to solve problems that seemed impossible. Maybe, James said slowly, they see what we've never recognized in ourselves. Maybe they see the most successful predator in the galaxy, and we just never realized that's what we were. Outside the station's windows, the stars seemed to twinkle with new meaning. Somewhere out there, the galaxy's most dangerous creatures were preparing to meet humanity as equals. And humanity was about to discover something about itself that it had never understood. The patient gaze of the ultimate survivors. The main assembly hall of Kepler Station had never seen anything like this before. 12 different species filled the enormous room, and every single one of them was an apex predator from their home world. The air felt heavy with barely controlled power and ancient instincts. Ambassador David Palmer stood at the human table, feeling very small and very out of place. To his left sat Prime Commander Thane, the Veltar leader whose green scales reflected the bright lights overhead. To his right, a massive void stalker floated in a special atmosphere tank, its city-sized form somehow compressed into the space of a large room. Around the circular hall sat the other apex representatives. The Shard Queen sparkled like a living diamond, her crystal body catching and throwing light in all directions. The Fenrari pack leader's wolf-like ears twitched as she listened to the translation devices. Strange creatures that David had never seen before filled the remaining seats, each one clearly built for hunting and killing. The conclave recognizes all apex species, announced the Fenrari pack leader, her voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed. We gather to discuss the human question. David felt his heart race. The human question? He had thought this was a diplomatic meeting between equals. A low rumble came from the Shard Queen, translated into words. The humans have been granted observer status, though they do not fit traditional apex categories. This is because of certain recognitions among our peoples. Dr. Rachel Adams, the expedition's expert on alien cultures, stepped forward. She had studied each of these species for months, preparing for this moment. Honored representatives, we're here to understand what your species sees in humanity. We want to know why you've invited us to this gathering. The Voidstalker's ethereal voice filled the room like distant thunder. Your people hunt differently than we do. Each of us became perfect at one thing. We grew stronger or faster or more poisonous. We specialized until we became the ultimate predator of our world. Prime Commander Thane leaned forward, his yellow eyes fixed on the human delegation. But you became something else entirely. Your species did not specialize. You did the opposite. And somehow this made you more dangerous than any of us. David felt confused. More dangerous? But we're not warriors like you. Humans are, we're just people trying to survive. A sound that might have been laughter came from several of the alien predators at once. The Fenrari pack leader's tail wagged once, which David had learned was a sign of amusement in her species. Just trying to survive, she repeated through her translator. Yes, that is exactly what makes you terrifying. Dr. Rachel tried to make sense of this. Could you explain what you mean? The Shard Queen pulsed with different colors, her way of showing deep thought. On my world, I became the perfect crystal hunter. I can cut through any substance, survive in any temperature, and live for thousands of years. I am the ultimate expression of mineral-based life. On my world, rumbled the Void Stalker, I became master of the gas storms. I can grow larger than your cities, hunt prey the size of mountains, and survive an atmosphere that would crush your bodies instantly. One by one, each apex predator described their perfect specialization. Claws that could cut through metal. Speed that could outrun aircraft. Venom that could kill with a single drop. Each species had evolved to become absolutely dominant in one particular way of hunting and killing. But humans, said Prime Commander Thane, are not perfect at anything. David felt slightly insulted. Well, that's not very flattering. You misunderstand, Thane continued. You are not perfect at anything, but you are good enough at everything. And that is far more dangerous than perfection. Dr. Rachel began to understand. You mean our adaptability? More than adaptability, said the Fenrari pack leader. We have watched your species' history. When ice covered your world, you learned to make fire and build shelters. When large animals became hard to find, you learned to grow food from the ground. When diseases threatened you, you learned medicine. When your population grew too large, you learned to travel between worlds. The Voidstalker's voice grew thoughtful. Each of us perfected one solution to survival. You perfected the ability to find new solutions. A small predator from a water world spoke for the first time, its translator producing a gurgling sound. We have a saying on our planet. The perfect hunter kills perfectly, but the adaptive hunter never stops killing. You are the adaptive hunters. David felt a strange chill as the implications became clear. These apex predators, each one capable of devastating their entire world, were saying that humans were more dangerous than they were. But we don't want to be dangerous, Rachel protested. Humans want peace. We want to explore and learn and make friends with other species. Yes, agreed the Shard Queen, her crystal form brightening. That is what makes you most dangerous of all. You do not see yourselves as predators, so you do not limit yourselves to predator thinking. Thane nodded slowly. A perfect hunter knows exactly what it can kill and how. But humans approach every challenge as if it can be solved somehow. You do not accept limitations. The Fenrari pack leader stood up, which David had learned was a sign of respect in her culture. This is why we pause when we meet your kind. In your eyes, we see the same patience that brought us to dominance. But where we learn to kill perfectly, you learn to never give up. The Voidstalker's massive form shifted in its containment field. You look at any problem and think, I can find a way. That certainty is what we recognize. It is the mark of the ultimate apex predator. David looked around the room at all these incredible, dangerous beings. For the first time, he began to understand what they saw when they looked at humans. Not fellow predators, but something possibly more formidable. A species that had turned problem-solving itself into the ultimate survival tool. The conclave was just beginning. Dr. Rachel Adams stood in front of the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy, her hands steady as she prepared her presentation. The holographic display showed the story of human evolution, but she knew this was about much more than science. This was about discovering what humanity really was. You asked what humans hunted on our world, she said, looking directly at Prime Commander Thane. The answer is simple. We hunted everything. But more importantly, we hunted problems themselves. The first image showed early humans on the African plains, small groups of people surrounded by much larger, stronger animals. Lions, elephants, giant bears that could crush a human with one swipe. Look at us, Rachel continued. No claws, no fangs, no thick hide or poison. We were slow compared to cheetahs, weak compared to gorillas, small compared to elephants. By every rule of nature, we should have been prey. The Shard Queen pulsed with curiosity. Yet you survived. How? Dr. William Foster, Rachel's research partner, activated the next sequence of images. They showed humans making tools, using fire, working together in groups. We learned to make our weaknesses into strengths. We could not run fast, so we learned to run far. We could not fight powerful animals alone, so we learned to hunt in teams. The display showed human migration patterns across the Earth. When the ice ages came, most species either adapted to the cold or died out. Humans did something different. We moved. We followed the warmth, learned to make warm clothes, built better shelters. When the ice melted and flooded our homes, we built boats. A low rumble came from the Voidstalker, translated as deep interest. You did not specialize to survive the ice. You learned to avoid the problem entirely. Exactly, Rachel said. When giant animals became too dangerous to hunt, we learned to throw spears from far away. When they became rare, we learned to grow our own food. When diseases spread through our groups, we learned to make medicines from plants. The Fenrari pack leader's ears perked up. This is unusual hunting behavior. Most predators perfect one technique and use it forever. William nodded. That's what makes humans different. We never perfected any single technique. Instead, we perfected the ability to learn new techniques. The presentation showed human cities growing larger, technology developing, humans eventually leaving Earth to explore space. Every time we faced a problem that should have killed us, we found a way around it. Not by becoming stronger or faster but by becoming smarter about the problem. Prime Commander Thane leaned forward, his yellow eyes intense. You became predators of challenges themselves. In a way, yes, Rachel agreed. Other species on Earth evolved to be perfect at one thing. Sharks became perfect ocean hunters. Eagles became perfect sky hunters. Humans became perfect at being imperfect. A smaller predator from a desert world spoke up. Explain this imperfection. Rachel smiled. Humans are decent at many things but not the best at any one thing. We can run but not as fast as horses. We can swim but not as well as dolphins. We can climb but not as well as monkeys. We can see and hear and smell, but other animals do all of these things better. So how does this make you dangerous? Asked the Shard Queen. William activated a new display showing human problem solving throughout history. Because being decent at everything means we can find some way to deal with any challenge. If we cannot run away fast enough, we climb. If we cannot climb high enough, we swim. If we cannot swim far enough, we build boats. If boats are not fast enough, we learn to fly. The Voidstalker's massive form shifted in its containment field. You never accept that a problem cannot be solved. That's right, Rachel said. Every apex predator in this room became dominant by perfecting one amazing ability. But what happens when that ability is not enough? What happens when a shark faces a problem that cannot be solved by swimming and biting? The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humans face that question every day, William continued. And our answer is always the same. Find another way. If hunting does not work, try farming. If farming does not work, try fishing. If fishing does not work, try something completely new. The Fenrari pack leader's tail twitched with understanding. This is the patience we see in your eyes. Not the patience of a hunter waiting for prey, but the patience of a species that knows it will eventually find an answer. Thane nodded slowly. We perfect our killing. You perfect your surviving. More than that, Rachel said quietly. We perfect our thriving. Humans do not just want to survive problems. We want to solve them so completely that they never threaten us again. She activated the final display showing human space exploration and the meeting with alien species. When we learned that other intelligent species existed, we did not try to become better fighters or build bigger weapons. We learned your languages. We studied your cultures. We found ways to turn potential enemies into allies. The room was completely quiet now. Even the translation devices seemed to hum more softly. This is why you recognize something in human eyes, Rachel concluded. You see the same drive that brought each of you to dominance on your worlds. But where you learn to excel at one thing, we learn to excel at learning itself. The Shard Queen's crystal body flashed with multiple colors. You weaponized adaptation. We made curiosity into a survival tool, William agreed. Every human who looks at a new problem thinks the same thing. There must be a way to solve this. That certainty is what you recognize. Prime Commander Thane stood slowly, a gesture of respect in his culture. Now we understand. You are not apex predators like us. You are something more dangerous. You are apex adapters. The other predators began to make sounds of agreement, each in their own species' way of showing respect. For the first time, humans understood what the galaxy's most dangerous creatures saw when they looked into human eyes. The absolute certainty that no problem was truly unsolvable. 6 months after the Apex Conclave, Ambassador Emma Clark stood in the newly built Hall of Hunters on Kepler Station. The circular room had been designed to hold all the Apex species comfortably, with humanity now having a permanent seat among the galaxy's most formidable predators. The Apex Coalition had changed everything. Species that had never worked together before were now planning joint missions across the galaxy. Each brought their unique strengths to solve problems that no single species could handle alone. The motion before the coalition, announced Prime Commander Thane, his deep voice carrying easily across the chamber, is the proposed exploration of the Andromeda Contact Zone. Our scouts have found evidence of apex-level species that have never encountered our particular expressions of dominance. Dr. Thomas Reed, now humanity's permanent representative to the coalition, studied the holographic star maps floating above the central table. The Andromeda Contact Zone was a region where 3 different galaxies came close together, creating a mixing ground for species from completely different evolutionary paths. The risks are significant, noted the Shard Queen, her crystal form pulsing with cautious colors. We would be entering territory controlled by predators we know nothing about. They might see us as invaders. The Fenrari pack leader's ears twitched with interest rather than concern. That is exactly why we should go. These species need to understand what apex cooperation can accomplish. Emma watched the discussion with fascination. A year ago, the idea of apex predators from different worlds working together would have seemed impossible. Each species had spent millions of years being the undisputed ruler of their domain. Learning to cooperate with equals had been a difficult adjustment. The Voidstalker's ethereal voice filled the chamber. The humans should take the lead in first contact protocols. They have proven most skilled at reading the intentions of unknown predators. Several other coalition members made sounds of agreement. Emma felt a familiar mix of pride and responsibility. Humans had become the interpreters for the coalition, able to understand and communicate with apex species in ways that even other apex predators sometimes could not. "What makes you think these new species will respond well to us?" asked an aquatic predator whose species name was unpronounceable in any human language. Thomas stood to address the question. "Because every apex predator we've met so far has recognized the same thing in human behavior. That recognition seems to be universal among species that have achieved dominance through excellence." Prime Commander Thane nodded his massive head. "The humans understand something that we are still learning. Dominance through specialization has limits. Dominance through adaptation does not." Emma remembered her first encounter with Thane, when she had felt that strange chill of recognition passing between them. Now she understood what had happened in that moment. Thane had seen in her eyes the same patient confidence that marked all successful apex predators, but refined in a way he had never encountered before. "The vote will be held now," announced the Fenrari pack leader. "All in favor of the Andromeda exploration mission, with humans leading diplomatic contact?" One by one, the apex species registered their approval. Emma watched as creatures that had once been the ultimate rulers of entire worlds chose to follow humanity's lead into the unknown. It was not submission but recognition of specialized expertise. After the vote passed unanimously, the coalition members began discussing practical details. Which ships to use, what supplies to bring, how to approach potentially hostile apex species without triggering territorial conflicts. During a break in the discussions, the Shard Queen approached Emma privately. Her crystal form sparkled as she spoke through her translator. "I have been curious about something. Do humans understand what they have become?" Emma considered the question carefully. "What do you mean?" "On my world, I spent 3 million years being the only apex predator. I knew exactly what I was and what my place was in the order of things. But humans seem unaware of their true nature." "We're still learning," Emma admitted. 6 months ago, most humans thought we were just clever animals who got lucky. Now we're discovering that we might be something much more significant." The Shard Queen's form pulsed with what Emma had learned was amusement. "Humans are the only species I have met who achieved ultimate dominance by accident. You solved problems because you needed to survive, not because you were trying to become apex predators." Emma nodded thoughtfully. "Maybe that's why it works so well. We never set out to dominate anything. We just wanted to keep solving the next problem." "And that," said Prime Commander Thane, who had been listening to their conversation, "is what makes you the most dangerous species any of us have ever encountered. You approach every challenge with the assumption that it can be overcome somehow." The break ended and the coalition members returned to their planning. Emma took her seat among the galaxy's apex predators, still amazed by how naturally she fit into this gathering of ultimate hunters. As the meeting continued, she reflected on what humanity had learned about itself. They were not the strongest, fastest, or most specialized species in the galaxy. But they had something that might be even more valuable: the absolute certainty that any problem could be solved if they just kept trying different approaches. The Fenrari pack leader caught Emma's eye and nodded with respect. In that simple gesture, Emma understood the full weight of what the coalition represented. These were species that had clawed their way to the top of their respective worlds through millions of years of evolution. They had earned their dominance through strength, speed, cunning, or other natural advantages. But when they looked at humans, they saw something that commanded even their respect. A species that had achieved the same dominance through pure stubborn refusal to accept defeat. That patient, persistent gaze was what every apex predator in the galaxy recognized. Not the focused intensity of a specialized hunter, but the calm confidence of a species that had never met a challenge it could not eventually overcome. The meeting ended with plans for humanity to lead the coalition into unknown space, carrying with them the most powerful trait any species could possess: the unshakable belief that there was always another way.